So now we'd like to jump into daily practice. We'd like to ask VET practitioners about their perception of trends, developments, challenges and chances. The ones we have identified on day one. You've been listening very closely yesterday, and we want to know what is your message to the policy levels. Thanks for being here with us. Gunilla Almgren, would you please come to the stage? The moment I don't know. Here you are, big applause. Good to have you here. Please come to the stage. From Rega Bregla Amateur from Sweden, an entrepreneur at heart. Gunilla has a seat in various boards of the Swedish business-related organizations as well as in private companies. Participates in several committees and working groups set up by the European Commission. She runs a micro business which is expanding. We will hear about that more in the discussion. And she's currently Vice President of the European Association of Craft, Small, Medium-Sized Enterprises. Please do have a seat. And with us, applause again, perfect. And with us, Bicca Olin Obesso, the President of the Organizing Bureau of European School Students. A big applause for you. A young woman who graduated from upper secondary school with vocational qualification in audio-visual communication. And she as well holds a higher school diploma, and she works in the media, just for all the recruiters here in the room. Very warm welcome. With us at this panel, Verena Spitz from BAWAG PSK. She is Deputy Chair of the Austrian Works Council of BAWAG PSK. Applause for you. We are talking about the fourth biggest bank with about 3,000 employees here in Austria. In her role, Verena also is a member of the supervisory boards in BAWAG PSK, and she's chair of the advisory panel for work and technology of the Union of Private Sector Employees in Austria. Good to have you here. And Franz Reithuber, principal of the Secondary College of Engineering in Steyr, very beautiful town in Upper Austria. Good to have you here. Franz was made a member of the General Assembly, European Network for Quality Assurance for Vocational Education and Training. He is also a member of several working groups, and he is the spokesperson for all Austrian higher secondary VET schools. And he is employed at SKF, which is actually the world market leader in bearings and seals. Am I right? Yep. I am, okay. Applause for you again. Let me join you. If you might ask yourself why this seat is empty, it's for the forthcoming panels. So we are complete here. Franz, you work with the next generation. And you know the situation of all the higher secondary VET schools in Austria, just to say this in advance. But I'd like to ask the companies first. From the companies' perspective, question to the entrepreneur. Gunilla, please, would you start? Competitiveness, innovation, disruption. What is the role of vocational education and training? What can it do for you? What can you do for VET? Can VET save us? Which VET can save us?
An inclusive, complete VET can save us all. The entrepreneur takes risks every day, and to employ more people is a new risk. Of course, we feel much safer if we have people in our companies before employing them. So the VET can help very much to make us sure that this is a person I can employ, and it will be quite quicker than searching around. We are receiving persons for training from different groups and of the society, and I think it's very important that the society on the European level can be very clear about what do we mean with VET. For whom is VET? VET should be inclusive for everyone, but we should make it individual for each person. One thing is the sectors VET. Of course, we know that the sectors are very good at this. In Sweden, we have a very good cooperation. But then we have other groups of the society. For example, the young people, very young people who need to come out. And now they decided in Sweden that all people 16 years old should go out in businesses to learn for a few weeks every year, which is very, very, very positive. Then we have elderly people being kicked out from the big industry or being burned out. They need to come back to work again. And through our help from the businesses, they will for sure come out.
Which of these target groups are most difficult to address or to reach, in your experience?
The young people are, of course, more open for learning, but we need to help them from the very beginning. How is the culture when you go to work instead of go to school? Elderly people, they have been working, for example, as a receptionist for 30 years. Of course, it's very difficult for that person to change mind, go into an education, study. The digitalization is very difficult. But I also see it from the university. People come to us and they don't even know how to make an Excel sheet. So then I ask myself, did they understand at the university that these people should use their knowledge in Excel sometimes? So we need to cooperate much closer.
And what is the role of the employers in this circle of training and education? We're talking about investing in people. So what would be your role?
Yeah, as an employer, I see that the first thing is to give experience and time. It's very much time using to have a person who is not really employed that we want to teach how to do a work. But also the culture, the social competence is very important. And if we can start with them already 15 years old, they have a much more lucky career, I think. So we need to invest in our own time to help people coming in. I think it's very positive to have persons for training. And then we need, of course, also to help people not having our language. But that we also have to be a little bit pedagogical. But I think we need also to educate the people receiving, the employers, how to handle it. Because it's not only to take in a person and say, you can start today. You need a program. We have written information when they come. We have written instructions of all of our administrative work and in our stock.
Would you take us behind the curtain of your business, please?
Of my business?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
We are importers of sanitary fittings and water-saving equipment from different countries in Europe. And we sell to the industry, the OEM, the Bauhandel, the construction, construction affair, and several different companies using this kind of products. So I am a saleswoman mainly.
Do you employ apprentices? Do you have? Do you invest
we
in
are not
apprenticeship?
having it from the sectors, but we employ apprentices. Yes.
Okay. When you talk as an entrepreneur about the ideal strategy for talent management in a company, any given size, what would it look like, this ideal talent management strategy, and which limitations do you see currently?
I think it's very important for the individual planning, because I see a lack of it when it comes to us. I need also my business organization in Sweden to be very much included with the work, together with the members. And I also see that the social competence we need to educate in.
Thanks in the first round. Verena, disruption is daily business in the banking industry as well as in the media. Following the slides of Sabine Herlichka from Keynote One, we have been on the cutting edge of disruption. So I have a lot of questions from the Works Council perspective. What are the challenges you perceive? What is the role of VET? How are all these changes perceived in the workforce, and how serious is it, by the way? Well, it should be open. Yeah.
Yeah, it is quite serious. Let me allow me to tell you a little bit about the changes in our industry. For example, until a few years ago, people who did the risk assessment of customers applying for a loan were considered highly qualified employees. Of course, there was a set of instructions and criteria telling the employees what they had to look into, what documents they needed to collect from the customers, how to calculate if the customer would be able to pay back the monthly loan installments. But the employee had to be able to understand and interpret the instructions, to act accordingly, to do the documentation and so on. And now customers are rated by a scorecard system, an algorithm. Most people who did the assessment are no longer needed, therefore. Now you need people who can write the set of instructions and criteria in a way that a programmer can make them into an algorithm. So you need now people who have the skills to do one of the following: prepare processes for digitalization, or write algorithms, or develop statistical models and scorecards, or understand the underlying topics so deeply that they can make a decision where the algorithm can't, because we still have 1% of what we call yellow cases, where the algorithm says neither yes nor no, but where a person still has to look into the case and then make the decision. But that needs a much deeper understanding of the topic than just following a set of instructions. So these are totally different skill sets that are needed now. And of course you can't just take a person, put him into a training course for 6 months and make him a developer of statistical models. That's not, that won't happen, because you need to do a university degree for 3 years to be able to do such a thing. So yeah, it is a difficult thing at the moment. Lots of people lose their jobs, and that's why VET as part of lifelong learning is so important for us as a Works Council. We had the dramatic changes, and a lot of companies are looking for people with different skill sets now, and these companies now usually have 2 options. And option 1 is lay off some or a lot of the existing staff.
What they do actually?
What they actually do. Hire new people who already have these skills and only train them in the specifics of the company, the processes, the proprietary software, and so on.
Which is not employability.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. This, of course, puts a lot of strain on the public sector, as these new employees, the VET of these new employees was usually state-financed, on the one hand, and on the other hand, the former employees return to the labor market, usually at a rather high age with a high risk of unemployment. But we have a good measure in Austria, the so-called Labor Foundation, Arbeitsstiftung, which is funded partly by the state, partly by the industry or company, and its goal is to up or reskill people that just had to leave a company due to restructuring, and thus help them find new jobs as soon as possible. For instance, in the finance sector, the formation of a labor foundation for the whole industry was part of the collective bargaining in 2017. It took a year to get into place, but we did it. So that's the one option which most companies choose. The other option, of course, would be to take lifelong learning seriously also within the companies and install in-house programs to upskill the employees to stay employable. But of course, this won't come into reality if the company itself has to do it on their own. We would still need a co-financing system with the public sector, but it would be better for the people because they won't be unemployed. It would be cheaper for the public because they don't have to pay unemployment pays, and it would be, of course, better for the national economy. Mrs. Herlichka yesterday said that the companies already contribute a lot. I would say yes, some do, but some don't. Some only train their employees in what is absolutely necessary at the moment and nothing more. And some would love to, but don't have the resources or possibilities. So we need solutions that don't rely on a single company, but we must understand that the VET, as part of lifelong learning, is the responsibility of all 3 parties involved: the company, the public sector, and the employee.
This was quite clear, thank you. Can you give us any idea, maybe facts and figures, what amount of money would be needed, say, when you look at Austria? Or the banking industry?
I can only say that in the Labour Foundation, the company has to pay 10,000 euro per person that goes into the foundation. So it's quite a lot of money, really. And that's only the part that the company pays. And there is yet another part that the public sector has to pay. So it is a lot of money, but I'm sure it's still cheaper than just pushing people out of work and then not knowing what to do with them.
With these discussions, I always seems to me, please do correct me if I'm wrong, we know so very much about all the needs in reskilling and upskilling, and and only very few things happen. Do you have an explanation for that? You said some companies would like to, but they don't, and it's a question of cooperation and new fundings. Is it all about that?
Yeah, and it's difficult because we all know that things do change and very quickly.
We have been knowing for years and years
but
and
we
years.
don't.
This is not
but,
so
but
new.
we don't know how exactly things will change, and we don't know what the picture will be in 2 years. So, for example, in the collective bargaining this year, we had the project to, together with the employers, work on a program for qualification within the companies. But I can't tell anything about it yet because the first working session will be in August. So we don't have any solutions yet. But we know that this is a problem. But in the discussions in the collective bargains, we already saw that we lack common pictures of how exactly the future will be. And therefore it's difficult to develop what exactly will be needed.
But are we also talking about social stability in the midterm and long run? We are.
We are, definitely.
Thanks. First round. From the perspective of higher secondary VET in Austria, Franz, would you please talk to us? In a rapidly changing environment, first question, what are you? A facilitator? Are you a provider only? I don't think so. Are you a teacher only? I don't think so. It's more interactive. Are you a lobbyist as well? Are you a friend of your students?
I think the last aspect is enormously important. So far, we didn't talk about the classroom. What happens in the classroom? We have a students' representative sitting here, and I think this is very important. We have to talk about what happens in the classroom. It's education, first at home, then in the peer group, and then in the classroom. And it is so important that there is a good relation between teachers and students, because this influences mostly the transfer efficiency, not only of contents, but also of behaviors, of values. And as every teacher should claim to be seen as a role model from the side of the students. Of course, there is an authority distance which is necessary.
Yeah.
It's a hierarchy, but it's the question is how teachers play and work on that hierarchy. I think it's very important to hear the voice of the student at this point. But maybe I should make it a bit more clear what the higher VET is. Yesterday our minister spoke about that. Our Director General spoke about it. It is we heard already that it starts at 14 years and ends at 19 years. And if you look closer to this age frame, you realize that our schools, the higher VET, which I represent today, has the first year in compulsory education, then there are 3 years in secondary education, and there is 1 year, the last year, in tertiary education.
So what exactly do you prepare your students for? It's not only about securing the supply for skilled labor, is it?
The 5 years programs, the higher VET, I take my example as being in the technical area, we prepare them for working as engineers in the future. And we have already realized yesterday that the speed of change is progressively increasing. So the content we are teaching today the content is just the vehicle to transport more important issues, which is problem-solving competence, is the competence to gather new things out of literature, of other courses, so that they can be effective in future requirements. That is so important. And this is what, when I put the head of SKF on my head, then this is so important for the companies as well. Because to become a specialist in the field of working is something which the companies have to train them. We have to take care as educators that they are able to learn the new things as quick as possible. On the one hand side, because just something like 50% of our graduates go directly in industry or SMEs or run their own company, and 50% go to further education to universities. And I think this is a good mix.
So could I say your graduates are a kind of ambassadors?
Of course, yes. And for that reason, we are enormously supported by industry, because our graduates are the bosses in the companies after a certain amount of time, and they know every cent or investment these companies do with us will be paid back to the public in a very important way.
The CEDEFOP study found, despite extensive effort, VET's image remains in some countries poor compared to general education. Would you agree on that when we talk about Austria?
Not in Austria. I was a member of the task force making VET more attractive. Sean Mendes was the head of that task force. And on that I could learn that the VET is perceived very differently in the societies. In Austria, because we have very long history on that, we can prove that the best brains of our society also choose the VET path and can develop in all directions. There is a certain percentage of our graduates which become medical doctors, which become philosophers, when they realize, the technical world is not really mine, and then they can go other directions.
And do they stay in Austria, or do you notice a brain drain?
More and more, and we send them out.
Okay.
10% of our students between the 4th and the 5th form, currently we send them to China, to India, to Australia, South Africa, Guatemala, USA, and Canada. And it is so important that they get an intercultural boost already throughout their study with us, a language boost, that they can learn what about the world is, and distribute that experience in their peer groups, which is much more effective than if we would educate them how the world looks like.
You really seem to love your job. You seem to love what you do.
I do, yes.
Obviously. Bicca, you've been addressed by Franz. And we said you are the representative of the younger generation, of the next generations. Your perspective, are there any misconceptions you sensed here?
Can I start with a quick poll for the audience?
Of course you can involve the audience, we should.
We all know that sitting kills, and it's Tuesday morning and you're all a bit tired. So if you have spoken to a vocational student in the last 2 months, stand up and wave your arms. Stand up.
The panel
Come on.
included?
Great. Thank you. This looked a lot better. This looked a lot better than yesterday when you were asked if you have a vocational degree. Sorry about that. Yes, is there a misconception? Thank you first, Franz, for addressing that we need to listen to the students. I guess that's what I'm here. It's not the first time I've been the only student representative, and but I think it's a great step in the right direction to have students included here in the discussion. I would want to address something from yesterday. We talked about the labor market wanting speed, wanting changing rapidly, and therefore wanting more skills rapidly. And then we talked about education being quite a slow way of gaining more skills. So to me, VET is the answer to that question, because I was a student that really didn't have no patience at all. Like, I'm not the person who sits around and listens to a teacher going on and about something I already knew. So to me, even though I'm like an academic student in the very typical sense that I like reading and so on, I went to vocational school because I wanted to have an experience where I got to learn a little bit of theoretical stuff, then go out into the work and kind of develop those thoughts in my head while working, and back to education and back and forth. And that was the kind of education system that Finland provided me. So I'm really happy about that, and I kind of want to promote that, because I believe the solutions to those problems that we have addressed already are within VET and are within the students and teachers in the daily life, that we actually answer those questions already with vocational education. The only problem that I see is that the more flexibility you have, the more money it costs. And I think a lot of us know this problem, because it's a beautiful thing to have the kind of flexibility where someone can learn theoretical stuff and then go out and actually use those skills practically, and back and forth like that, and also learning in the workplace, learning in school, and so on. But that requires a lot of guiding and a lot of just another person being there in the everyday life, guiding you through what is it you should learn, where do you contact the company, how do you apply for a job, all these skills that vocational education provides, that needs good teachers that are passionate about their job and that are there in everyday life. And those people cost a bit of money. So I think everything comes down to a resource question, an investment question, and I really hope that the people here today are the people that want to make that kind of investment. Because it's an investment on every level. When we invest in vocational education, it's not only in the individual student or in the future of VET, like we're now discussing. It's an investment in society and in the future of the EU and globally even.
Have you decided what to do in your professional career yet? Or is it open to you?
Every time I go to a conference like this, I think I get closer to deciding on politics, because there's so much I feel like needs to be changed. Currently, I'm the full-time president of my school student union in Finland, and that's been great. I'm for the second year now. So what I do in my everyday life is going around really to talk to people about what needs to change. And what I perceive over and over again is that there's already, especially in vocational education, we already have the competence to do the changes we want to do. We already have the teachers that really have a passion for teaching each individual the special skills that they need. We have businesses that actually, I don't know why people put student welfare and businesses up against each other like there was some kind of conflict, because the thing that businesses want, in my opinion, is well-being students that are skilled and that have a great life in front of them, and that's also what student wants. I mean, there's an investment you make in the businesses of your country as well if you invest in having students that have welfare services in school and that like being at school, and there's like, yeah, they just have a good life there. That's the kind of students that the companies want to employ when they graduate. So I think that's an investment you make, yeah, in the schools, but also in society.
I think we agree. So yes, definitely, thank you. Second round, we want to know, please, about the EU instruments provided. Gunilla, are they helpful? Which ones are helpful? Do you work with the instruments provided from the EU level?
You mean on the European level? Yes, I know about them, but if I should consider myself not very much engaged outside my company, I'm running a company, I'm not engaged in an organization or on the European level, I would know nothing about it. Okay. Because it's a lack of information. It's a lack of including the business organizations so that they can have discussions with us and receive ideas from us. But I think the digitalization with the database, etc., would be perfect for us to use, of course. There can be some problems or challenges with the language skills between us all, but I think that would be very, very good.
But lack of information is the point.
Yes.
Okay. Bicca, would you add on that?
So ABESU, which is the umbrella organization for secondary students, is working with ARQA-VET, among others. And I think that the thing that we're realizing a lot is that not a lot of companies and not a lot of even schools always know what to do with all these instruments that there actually are. Youth Pass is another one for more informal learning that we have been using a lot. And I kind of hope to see more of these streamlined, I guess, and kind of as well the information going out to schools and companies so we can actually learn to use those tools that already exist. So I don't think it's a lack of tools, but more a lack of information right now going on. And really also between levels and between school systems in general, so that it would be possible to do, for example, what I did, which was a double examination where I got both a vocational degree and a high school diploma. Imagine if you could do the vocational degree in one country and go to another country to complete your high school diploma. I think this is really hard at the moment, but I would love to see it happening.
Very useful information for policymakers. Verena, would you agree? I guess not disagree.
Well, to speak for my company, I must be honest, I didn't know whether we use any of the EU instruments. So I contacted the person who runs our apprenticeship program yesterday and asked him. And he said, no, until now we didn't participate in any of the EU programs, but next year one of our apprentices will there's something like Erasmus also for apprentices, and that's where he will participate. Yeah, and that's where he will participate. But usually, no.
Was there any explanation why? Okay, Franz, do you have any, maybe, explanation?
We use instruments, yes.
You have to.
No.
No.
Because we have teachers from industry, and I'm still employed in industry, and I'm not the only one. And in industry, it is a survival issue that you apply quality management. Otherwise, you can't survive any longer. And therefore, the teachers from industry brought in that aspects. And since 1993, we do individual feedback. And then we use the quality framework of the EU as a meta level and break it down to our specific needs. And if we would educate our students, ladies and gentlemen, as you have been taught a couple of years ago, we would fail. If we would try to convince the students, for example, a differential equation is something very nice. They may take out this piece of equipment. Yesterday we have learned that Steve Jobs introduced that just 11 years ago. And then they show you what is the interest of our times, but definitely not a differential equation, just to take an example. So we have to adjust our way of teaching according to these social implications. That's so important. And we have to try out in the field, in the classroom, new aspects, new things. And we can learn out of things which researchers bring in out of the networks. And for example, we have a special approach in cooperate forms of teaching, making the students becoming a teacher out of the peer group. It's right. And we have used the tool peer learning, which is founded also by the European Union, which is brought into by ARQA-VET, the Austrian reference point for quality assurance. And in this autumn, we do already the second peer review. It is so important for us that people from other countries in Europe give us feedback, and we can learn that much of that.
Thank you. Would you please now share your vision with us, VET post-2020, in the ideal world?
I think it's very promising picture and very different. In Austria, I think we are already saturated in VET. In some other countries, there is still space for improvement. Yeah, because for a functioning society, we need doctors, philosophers, and we shouldn't focus only on VET. And we have learned yesterday from the statistics that VET is also the majority part delivering the A-level certificates. And we need extremely good teachers. It's one of the address to the politics, people from politics, that we work on the perception of teachers in the society. And teachers usually don't come out of VET. So VET is very important, and we should strive to have the right people in the higher VET system, the right people in the apprentice system, because I realize that some people in the apprentice system would better fit to us, and some people joining our path would better fit to work on the intelligence of the hand, which is a better word to express what apprenticeship is. So, and if we are successful in that, I think it is a very promising future. And we have extremely good students. They are really hard working, and I am convinced that they are the pillars of our future societies.
Thank you. Your vision, Verena?
You talked about apprentices and that some would be better in your schools and some of your school students would do better in an apprenticeship.
Right places.
Yes, but we need more permeability, because at the moment, that's one of the things that I would like to see in the future, that our apprenticeship program, which is a really, really good program, needs two things to be even better. It needs to be quicker in adjusting to the new skill sets. It is a very good, very traditional system, and it's very stable, but that's also why it's very slow to adapt. So we need quicker ways to adapt the curricula to the new digital skill sets, to new digital professions, and still do that together with schools, with students, with social partners. That's the one point. And the second point is the permeability, because now at the moment, if young people or their parents, which often is the thing that the parents choose the path and not the children at that early age, have to choose a career, most of the time they'd rather choose a school, because after the school the children still have the possibility to go to university, but after an apprenticeship, which is a really, really good VET, it is very difficult. Minister Fassmann yesterday said that we have only few people who take that exam, that Berufsreifeprüfung that we have, where you can go to university after the apprenticeship, and that this is more symbolic. I would like to see that it's not symbolic, but that it becomes reality for most apprentices, that there really is the possibility and it's not a dead end. Yeah, so that's, and I hope that in the Alliance for Apprenticeship we will together work on strengthening that system. And the other part is for VET as part of lifelong learning in the companies is what I said, is this kind of labor foundation, but at an earlier stage, not after people lost their jobs, but while they still are in the jobs. That would mean an adaptation of the system now, so that people can take the risk and do a reskilling or upskilling and not fear to lose their job in the meantime, or don't know how to pay their rent or the mortgage in the time when they upskill.
Which also could be transferred to neighboring countries. We not only talk about Austria. Mm-hmm. Thanks. Bicca, your vision?
Yeah, I think a lot of us know that there has been a ton of educational reforms in Europe the last years, responding to realizing that suddenly everything happens so fast with all these mobile phones and everything else. So I think, especially in schools, people are getting a bit tired of reforms, and we just had a huge VT reform in Finland, the biggest educational reform since the 60s. So I know this concept very well, and I think my vision very concretely is an education system that is ready to adapt and evolve and change every single day instead of having these reforms. An education system that is built to adapt and take on that change and see it as something positive, because it's not going to slow it down. Like, this change we're seeing right now is not going to slow down at all. The other way around.
Permanent things.
Yeah, exactly. So we need a school system, an education system on all levels that is ready to change every day and adapt every day. And if there's new technology, it's the next thing Monday morning that you have to in the school. And again, this costs resources, but it's the investment we need to make in order to have a school system. And I think this is a Europe-wide problem, so why shouldn't we tackle it together? We have great examples from so many countries on different vocational systems, and we should really be able to just pick the best things from each one and create something that is maybe more streamlined as well, so that it's easier to measure and also easier to make sure every student all over Europe gets the same qualification and is, for example, eligible to go to any university in Europe. And it doesn't matter where you studied or what you studied, but you're always eligible, and no path is a dead end. So I think that's really important when we're outlining the vision. And the other thing I kind of wanted to stress here is the importance of actually listening to the reality checkers, us that are sitting here right now, and having at those table students, teachers, and businesses, and social partners, absolutely, to have the conversation really from the grassroots level up instead of the other way around. I gave a speech in the Finnish parliament to a committee, and I asked them if anyone there had completed a vocational degree, and they were like, no. There was a whole committee making decision about the VT reform where no one had a vocational degree, and I told them, call a vocational college in this city, go there for 2 hours, just 2 hours, and talk to the students, and you will have a much better view on how you should shape this system. So just kind of get that mindset in, and I think we're good to go. Because we have the competence already.
Very good, thank you. Gunilla, your vision?
If I was the president of Europe, I would have a strategy making sure that in each country, at 10 years old, every young child should be able to read and count. We have in Sweden lack of that knowledge when they finish school at 16. I would make sure that the VET system would function in school a minimum of 2 weeks when they are 15, in the gymnasium, of course, for all, not only the sectorial jobs. Also university. We need doctors, of course. We also need electricians, installers, people in our restaurants, and we need to respect their willingness for their work. Everyone cannot be a doctor, so we need to be very flexible and find for each person, make an individual plan what they need. And I would love to see Europe together to work with us, all organizations, business organizations, social partners, educational levels, etc. But I think if we shall find the good results, we shall include all people that is in the need of it. Also the disabled, also the older people. Also all the people having a dream of starting a business, but they have no resource for it. They haven't got the courage. How can we encourage them and include the business organizations for that work? And we will find the best Europe in the world.
Thank you. Applause. Do we have any incoming questions via Slido? To get up, I can't read it. So, 13 likes. The recognition of non-formal and informal learning should be more in focus. What do you think? Yes or no? Do you think there are appropriate means and methods to do that? Informal learning. Not always talking about certificates. Sorry, didn't get that.
Use my strategy.
Okay, did you hear that? It's all been said and answered. Anyone who wants to add on it, please?
Yeah, again, I think we kind of have the tools, the technical tools to do it. I just don't think we have maybe the soft skills in this sense to actually learn how to use them, how to measure. I've once filled in this thing called the Youth Pass, which is a tool to recognize non-formal learning, and I had to ask for help like tons of times because I didn't know how to evaluate my own learning during the week-long session that I was attending. So I think we really, we're not as good, I think we're in general not that good at like measuring our own knowledge. So I think it's something that we should also learn as part of lifelong learning for every adult child, any age, any group, any whatever, should learn how to measure your own knowledge and show it off in these kind of tools that we have, and also, of course, inform people about the tools that we do have so that they're put to proper use. But yeah, I do think that it's a really important part of developing any school system is just to recognize that people learn also outside of the classroom.
Another question is, it changed. If you could identify one single most important trend you see in VET and how you deal with it. Is there one single most important trend, or is it more about interconnection and interdependence? Yeah.
The trend I see is that we continue as we always have done. In my country, we do it this way. No, in my country, we do it this way. We should find in European community, we shall find a new way that is much better than our own ways. Because I'm very worried of the fact that we still stick to our own countries. We are the best. No, we should find new steps.
Yeah.
I think that one of the most important trends in VET should be that not only that we recognize informal learning, but that also that we recognize learnings from one VET system in another VET system, so that we...
A question for you, Franz, I think. How would VET college qualifications need to change? No, it's not the highest. I was wrong. But anyway, maybe you want to answer about the needed change in college qualifications. Yeah? Would you like to answer?
I think it's very important to include the teachers. The teachers, you're so welcome out to our businesses. Because if the students are out in our businesses, come back to the teachers. I don't mean you, because you're in the industry, but many teachers are not. How can the teachers teach a person being out in a world that they never have been themselves? So please, give resources to the teachers to come out to us.
To add an aspect you just have mentioned, there is a question, how can we keep the teachers, even the technical teachers, on the state of the art? I say we should not teach the state of the art, because the state of the art needs time until it becomes the state of the art. We have to teach the technological front end, which is not standing in books or newspapers, and the technological front end is within the laboratories of big companies, is within universities. Therefore, the systems needs to be as flexible to a part-time involve teachers from laboratories, from university, as being teachers in our VET schools, and taking care for a system for disseminating this brand new knowledge to the other teachers, to keep them on the technological front end. Once we give our students, graduate them out to industry, then it might be the state of the art. So this is a permanent aspect and very demanding for all school sites, but it is very important. If you leave a teacher alone, let me say when he starts teaching with 30 years or something like that, till 65 years, it can be a disaster. So we have to work on that and taking care of structures to keep them on the technological front end, sending them out in industry throughout the holidays, making them working a couple of weeks in laboratories to keep them on track.
Bicca?
Yeah, I wanted to comment on the qualification and what it's going to look like in 2030, when I'll hopefully be maybe a politician, if that's what we decided. I think, you know, when you go to a hotel or you take a taxi or you do something and you have an app and then you give it 5 stars or 4 stars or something else. I think that's how our qualifications are going to look, and we have to be really careful so that it doesn't become a system that excludes anyone, because there's the risk. But I think that's what it's going to look like, that you get feedback for everything you do from different aspects and from different stakeholders. You give yourself feedback and you evaluate yourself and your own knowledge, and there's kind of an app for it. There will probably be an app for it, where an employer can also look like, oh, so this student or this really recently graduated person has gotten this review in this kind of field, in this subject, from that teacher and from that summer job they had, and there's going to be like that kind of qualification where there is different stakeholders just giving giving some sort of review, and that you're also going to review yourself, and your employer can see that, oh, this person knows that they're good at writing, and you can see it from the text they wrote about themselves or in their biography. And that's already something that's happening. When I send out a CV, I don't send like a PDF. I send a link to my LinkedIn profile where I have reviews from my friends, and I send a link to my Facebook page or my web page where there's more information, and there might be some quote that someone said about me. And I think this is the direction we're going, and we have to be really careful so that it's still a system that benefits everyone.
Thank you. Let me pass one last question to you, since we are running out of time a bit. We need more clarity. What are social competencies, really? What are the elements?
We are talking about education, formal education, always. But in the companies, we also understand education as included the social competence. Because it's very important for young people to learn how do we act in a business, in a company. Who is deciding how we should act? It's our customers. They pay our salaries. If we don't deliver on time or in time, we will have no customers, we will have no employment. And in that respect, we need also to learn the social competence, how to communicate. I hear very often that they misunderstand each other when they talk. Oh, I mean that and that. No, I mean that and no. They are not trained to be very clear, to make sure that the other person who shall take over a job, for example, next step in a job, that they don't understand each other. So that is part of the social competence. Coming in time to the office or to work, that's basic. Not very natural. Saying hello to everybody, saying goodbye. And when we have our coffee pause, the young people very much sitting like this with something in their ears. No talking, no communication. And the older ones, very funny discussions around the table. So we need to learn our young people that if you want to succeed on a private dinner or in your business or work, try to learn also to talk, not only like this.
Yes, I know you have to. In brief, please.
Commenting on that, because I'm very much fond of the same concept of teaching actually those social skills and those soft skills in the school, and I think that's where the teachers come in. So also that the teachers in that sense wouldn't be on their phones when we're eating or having a coffee break in school. I don't think that's a big problem, and I would also want to add that social norms and how we talk to each other is very much changing. And right now I think neither old nor young people know how to interact with each other, and I see that as a far bigger problem than the fact that young people are on their phones, because they might definitely be social even with each other on the other side of the table. But young people and older people, they kind of want to connect, but I don't think we have the tools for it right now. And I think this is also a much bigger conversation than just VET and just the labor market, but really talking to each other and finding the connection that will also make sure that the business can transfer to the next generation. Because I go to talk to especially NGOs, which are also employers, and they are like, you can't work at our workplace if you wear a hat inside. And I'm like, but you just explained to me that no young person wants to work with you. So maybe you should think about what kind of norms are you willing to change in order to get young people interested in working with you as well. Because we're a huge like not a bigger generation than the other, but still a lot of people coming out in the workforce right now, and we will also be able to form our own companies. So if you want to work with young people, also be able to open up and ask, what are you looking at on your phone? Can you show me the video? And not only be like, why are you not talking to me? So really, it's an over-generational question as well.
And we want to bridge this possible gap, of course. Verena.
I would also like to add one sentence to the social skills. I think we need to teach people how to orient themselves in and how to cope with a world that is becoming more and more volatile, uncertain.
But do we know
how to do that?
Yeah.
Well, there's the resilience thing, there's the question of how much security do I need to be able to adapt. I think, no, I'm not sure if we know how to do it at the moment, but I know that we need to know.
For final remarks, you have been sending lots of messages to the policy levels, as far as I noticed. Is there anything you would like to add as a message?
Yes. One of the messages is, or just let me put one message, we out in the fields, being teachers, working in the classrooms, knowing the systems around, we would like to be involved in the development processes, necessary development process to adjust the system to the new requirements of the future, that we are involved already in the genesis of these processes. Because then the experience out of the field is involved in the new things, and I think this is very necessary.
Just a quick end remark from my part. When I'm talking about investment in VET and education, it doesn't only mean money. It also means for any one of you who is a teacher to take 5 minutes after the lesson to ask, what was interesting? What did you learn? It means for a principal to take €100 out of the school budget and ask the students to arrange an event and give them that kind of social competence or whatever competence you gain from that kind of thing. And make sure that democracy blossoms in the school. All these small things that still make a huge difference. And it means for a local politician or stakeholder or official to see those opportunities for cooperation when building new schools or when just creating a new project where people can also learn those skills without going, for example, to a company. And it means for EU level officials to really see where there are policy recommendations needed so that there's an equal standard all over Europe, and that there isn't a place where VET is the second choice, because we have those places at the moment, and we have those in regions, and we have those within families, and it's really everyone's responsibility to make sure that that's not the situation anymore. And yes, it also means when you make the budget for your company or for your city or for your region or for your country, reserve a little extra for the vocational education, because right now education is the biggest investment we can make, and we should turn our eyes to VET, empower VET, and take those best practices that we do have, the flexibility, learner-centered approach, and implement it to the rest of the school system and the rest of society, and I think that's how we're going to win. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This was a great panel. Big applause.